I'll be making some forward-looking statements. Obviously, we cannot predict the future. So please, as we go forward, recognize there's some forward-looking statements, and we do our best to match what we say we're going to do. Sorry, I just ran 2 flights of stairs. So the company is a high-growth, low-cost precious metal producer in North America. That's the most important thing. We're very focused on Canada, the United States, Mexico. We're not focused on jurisdictions which we're not comfortable with. We want to take a bet. We want to take execution risk on our minds. We don't want to take a bet risk with governments or places where it's difficult to operate given rule of law or effectively a veto and those kind of issues. So we go to places that have good mining jurisdictions. We have 2 silver operating mines, one in northern Idaho at the Galena Complex, which is about 7 miles from Lucky Friday's Lucky Friday mine. And we've got our coastal operations in Mexico, which has been in production, that mine in that area has been in production since the 1920s. So very good mining areas. Idaho's been in operation since the 1880s. We recently acquired the Pershing Gold and the Relief Canyon asset. That mine is on track to be built in pour gold at the end of this year, second week of December, basically. And when we're done, we'll be producing somewhere between 100 and 150,000 gold equivalent ounces with our gold and silver in 2021, roughly at about $800 all-in sustaining costs. So we're in the second quartile of all-in sustaining costs. If prices stay where they are, we're going to be able to make some money for our shareholders at the mine level and at the company level. Our team itself has built 16 mines through its history. It involves 16 mines. We built our last mine, which is the San Rafael mine in Coastal, for about $16 million, which was 30% below budget. And we built it on time, and we expect Relief Canyon to be on time and on budget. We just put out an increase of 250% in our gold equivalent reserves. Our gold and silver has gone up by 250% year over year on our reserve basis, and 90% on a per share basis. Obviously, a lot of that is the Pershing acquisition, but on a per share basis, our reserves have increased by 90%. Gold and silver. We have a strong balance sheet to fund Relief Canyon. Relief Canyon is a very big free cash flow producer. It's going to produce roughly 70,000 ounces next year at about $800 all sustaining costs, so at $1,500 gold. There's a very nice margin there. The company trades about 1.5 million shares a day between the New York Stock Exchange and the Toronto Stock Exchange. That volume has increased 5-fold over the last 8 or 9 months, and that's really as a result as we get closer to getting this new mine into production. Talk a little bit about the share ownership. The 3 largest shareholders are Eric Sprott, Sandstorm, and Pierre Lassonde. Pierre's just about 4% now, which will come out at the end of September. And so they're our biggest shareholders. We're basically 50% institutional, 50% retail. Prior to the Pershing deal, we were more like 65% institutional, but Pershing was 100% retail. So we've added a big retail component, so we're doing a lot more marketing towards retail. You can see our list of shareholders there. You can see we've got market cap about $255 million US, or roughly 320 million Canadian. We've got 82.5 million shares outstanding. And so we don't have 500 million outstanding. We've got pretty low shares. And so when you look at the reserves of 700,000 ounces or so, 653,000 ounces, 37 million in silver, and a bunch of lead and zinc, we've got big reserves per share. And even on a silver basis, we have 148 million ounces in silver. That does not include the Eric Sprott does not include the 40% that will go to Eric on October 1st, so those numbers come down a little bit. By about 32 million ounces as the Americas Gold and Silver and Eric Sprott joint venture kicks in shortly. You can see when we bought, one of the reasons we went out looking for a gold project was that if you look at the right side of the screen, there's a small chart where it shows our reserves. Precious metal equivalent silver was 55% of our reserve base, and base metals was 45%. But when you look to the far left, our production in 2018 was 78% base metal value and 22% silver production. And the reason for that is we've been basically throttling back our silver production as silver's low and increasing our base metal production as base metals were up. And that was a process of, keeping our best silver in the ground for when silver price moves. So this year we're going to produce just around 1.45, 1.5 million ounces of silver. That number can be 4.5 million ounces of silver as we go forward. from internal projects and stuff that's already built to in production. We've throttled back to increase our base metals because they were making more money to keep our silver in the ground. One of the phenomena of the silver industry is over the last 8 years, the average reserve grade of North American silver companies has gone down 39%. So that means silver producers have been high grading their silver, their best silver, to stay alive as silver prices are the lowest. We thought that was a terrible strategy because we want to keep our silver when silver goes high. So we converted what was an 80% silver company in 2012 to an opposite company, 80% base metals and 20% silver. So what that does for us, if we actually see a real move in the silver price, we're going to be able to increase our silver production on a very low cost basis without our costs increasing very, very much. And so that was an important strategy for us. But unfortunately, when silver declined again in 2018 and lead and zinc came off from its $1.60 high in zinc and $1.20 in lead, people said, you know what, Darren, you got too much base metals, not enough silver. And so internally, the board decided we didn't want to put our silver on. We wanted to continue to keep it in the ground, so we looked for a gold project. We found Pershing Gold. We bought Pershing at 1180 gold. It's better to be lucky than smart. We had no view of where the gold price was going to go at that time. We hoped up, much like silver, so we bought the company for $38 million. That project and that return for our shareholders at today's price is about a 65% IRR, including the acquisition cost. That doesn't happen very often in our industry. The capital for the mine is very low cost, but what it really drives three things. We bought a great gold project. It increases our precious metal and our reserves towards 70% roughly of precious metal production and precious metal reserves. And it allows us to keep our high-grade silver in the ground and hoping, and this year we caught a little bit of wind on silver. We don't think $18 silver is a great silver price yet either. We think it's going to go much higher, and we're going to be ready to go as it comes. We do a little bit of value proposition. We have had a bit of a move from about $2.25 on April 3rd when we announced the closing and the financing for relief. We've gone up to as high as $5. We're back at around $3.80 to $3.90 today. We have had a bit of a move, but we say if you look at analyst estimates between Wesdome, McEwen, Premier, America's Gold and Silver, you see on a gold equivalent, gold and silver basis, we produce just as many ounces as those guys do. Our average operating cash flow is as high as Wesdome's and higher than the others. Our free cash flow is better than any of our peers, and yet we sit at the lowest valuation of those companies. And that's because the market is waiting for Relief Canyon to be built. So in second quarter, when we pour that gold and we get into first commercial production at the end of the first quarter, we expect to see a significant re-rate in our stock. We have 82 million shares outstanding, and we're increasing our our precious metal production by 500% year over year. So we expect to see a re-rate in our stock price, and this is proof as to why we'll get there. These companies are based in Canada, North America, and Mexico, where we are as far as production. So we're going to have, North American production. We're going to have as much production, more operating cash flow, more free cash flow than our peers. We expect to see a re-rate. Talk a little bit about Relief Canyon. It's a big property. The reason Relief Canyon has such a high IRR, 95% at $1,250 gold, was because it was an open pit mine previously, and in 2010 a company came in and built the back-ended carbon plant for $38 million, and then in 2011 they went bankrupt. So the plant's there and the mill's there, the mine has been stripped, so all we're really doing is creating new leach pads, putting in a crusher, a conveyor, taking some of the old tailings and redoing tailings areas, relining them. So it's a very small capital project. That's why we can announce the closure on April 3rd of the deal and announce that we're going to pour gold by the end of this year. So we're moving rapidly to that. You can see the pictures here. We're going to produce 90,000 ounces of gold over the 6-year reserve life at $800 an ounce. That number, $800, is going to go down a little bit as we move forward. We're going to produce about 70,000 ounces of gold next year, and we're almost 100,000 ounces in 2021. So a big increase. The strip is very low at the beginning. Very good free cash flow for the first 3 years of the mine life. Then we do some stripping in year 4, then get a nice cash flow from year 5 through 6. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Again, we will drill out more ounces. We expect about 3 more years of mine life. Maybe not at 90,000 ounces, but we expect to get some upside for the mine after that. The NPV of the reserve at $1,290 was $150 million. Obviously, with gold going to $1,500, it's worth a lot more. We've just redone the reserves. You can see 0.75 grams per ton. For those of you who are used to Canadian operations, that would be low in Nevada. That's quite a high-grade heap leach. So it's an oxide heap leach. Their mines like Fiore's are running 0.5, making money at $900 sustaining. So we're very comfortable. You can see the leach pads here being met. The long lead time item is actually the crusher. We were down just outside of Vegas after the shows in Denver, and the crusher's basically fabricated. It's being moved in pieces now, and we expect to start constructing that in mid-October, and we expect to be putting ore in the heap leach in early November. So that's, if we get it on in early November, we will pour in early December. So that's the plan. You know, you can see the guys working here. It's very close to Rochester. It's about on the edge of our property is about a driver 3-wood 7-iron to the Rochester mine. They have the same grade. They have the same characteristics of ore. There's nothing new and exciting we're doing here. There's no clay in the ore, so we expect this to be a very simple. It's 82.5% recovery, and basically you get about 78 to 80% of that the first 3.5 months. So it's a very good ore. You don't get very cold weather here. So you don't have that issue. So we're very comfortable that we're going to be able to deliver here. And as the 17 mines our guys have built, this is probably the easiest of all of them. Our coastal operations, I don't exactly know how much time I have left, but keep going until somebody pulls me off. Oh, it's 10 minutes. Okay, great. 8 minutes, always great. So our coastal operations, which is in Sinaloa, Mexico, it's basically you fly into Mazatlan, which is a resort town. You drive yourself out to the mine site. Coasla, believe it or not, was the capital of Sinaloa in the 1800s. So it's a beautiful old town with 400-year-old churches. Very nice place. You know, first when you mention Sinaloa, everybody wants to mention the cartel and Netflix and whatever. I can tell you we're not close to those areas. We're close to tomato growing, not the other high-level agriculture that they grow. So it's a very simple place. As I said, I drive myself out to the mine site. Jim used to work there, used to get tickets on the way out to the mine site. So we've got this 19,000 contiguous hectares, and you see all the black dots on the chart. You say, why do I have all these black dots? Because between 1939 and 1944, Mexico was given money by the US government to find copper, lead, zinc, nickel, and they mined 46 high-grade starter pits here at either 2% copper equivalent or 10% lead or zinc equivalent. They weren't actually looking for silver, they were looking for base metals. And so they found 46 of these areas. They mined them literally in the old pictures with dynamite, donkeys, and small backhoes, and they would blast an area at surface. They would take it out, the rains would come in and drive that pit into the ground, and they'd go to the next one, the next one, the next one. So what has that done for us? It's given us 46 areas in which we can explore. And so we have mines on 4 of those 46. There's still 42 areas. 3 of them have been drilled, La Blanca, Estrella, and Chilocotes. Those will be mines in the future in our view, beyond what we have today. And it still leaves us with another 39 targets left to explore. We've recently ran geophysics over the top, or magnetics over the top, because you've got base metals. And we found 19 targets that we believe will be greater than 5 million tons. So the beauty is they're at surface, they're high grade, they don't go below 450 to 500 meters, that's where it becomes barren. John would know rhyolite, and also something there that doesn't, post-mineralized rhyolite, that's barren on the bottom. I'm not a geologist. And effectively, you're going to get low capital intensity, high grade return projects. We built the San Rafael mine for $16 million. It's going to give us an NPV of about $200 million on that mine. And so that's the beauty, is you're going to have lots of little small mines at surface with low capital intensity. So the view is we're going to be able to be drilling and exploring and operating here for decades to come. We've got about 9.5 years in reserve right now, and we're going to be growing that as we get some free cash flow from the Relief Canyon. Just want to talk to you about optionality, because I talked about high-grade silver versus low-grade silver. So in the blue and the burgundy is our San Rafael mine, and in the gold is our EC120 project. And up in this area here, which is our low-grade silver, high-grade lead and zinc, we're talking about 4% zinc, 1.7% lead, and 50 grams silver. So we're mining there today. This year that'll produce 600,000 ounces of silver, 43 million pounds of zinc, and about 20 million pounds of lead. The upper zone is 330 grams. So it's almost 6 times the grade, 6 to 7 times the grade of silver of the main zone. So if you looked at the pre-feasibility study that we did, we have been mining here for a year already. We have not touched it. We have developed up to it. We spent $4 million developing up into this zone this year. And we're sitting there waiting for higher silver prices. And so if we can see silver prices go up, we can go from 600,000 ounces here to mining both of these and going to 1.8 million ounces of silver. So 1.2 million ounce increase in our silver production year over year versus now zero cost. So that's what we're talking about keeping our silver in the ground. I'd rather be producing silver when prices are high than when prices are low. So we've got about a 4-year reserve life left here between these two assets. And then the silver gold is a 200 gram ore body, 200 gram silver ore body, which we can mine 2.5 million ounces of silver and about 5 million pounds of copper. And we can do that for about 5 to 5.5 years. That's the tip of the iceberg. We're going to drill in between these two structures here. We believe that we will tie these structures together and make this mine bigger. And we also have a Mexican partner that has an outline of about 3 million tons here. We're in negotiations with buying that local Mexican guy out to add resources. We want to get to a 10-year silver copper resource here, and then we want to be able to then expand our mill, which is about 1,800 tons a day, to about 3,000 tons a day, and really ramp the production up here to about 4 million ounces a year. So that's the strategy. You got a 10-year asset. And to put in perspective, we bought Scorpio Mining in 2015 for $15 million in enterprise value. So we built a mine for 16, we created value, we're going to continue to create value here. It's going to be a long-term producer for us. Again, we talked about most of this stuff, but again, silver is going to go up to 1 million ounces next year. And again, if we decide to take this full, the big upper zone in full throttle, we'll go to close to 1.8 million ounces. Talking a little about Galena, most people, I think the keynote speaker was Mr. Sprott. Eric is our partner here. We've now done a 60-40 joint venture. Somebody said, why would you do that? And the issue is, we got Galena from a $30 all-in sustaining cost mine in 2012 down to a $14.80 mine in 2015. But then silver prices stayed low, and then we built our Mexican mine, and we spent all of our capital building Mexico, and now we're spending all of our capital building Relief in Nevada, and we put no money into Galena, just as a result of low silver prices. And so when you have an underground mine, you start to stop developing, you start getting yourself into operating flexibility issues where you don't have enough stopes open. And so this mine has continued to, productions continue to go down, reserves have continued to go down. But as reserves were decreasing, we've increased indicated and inferred mineralization by almost 40 million ounces. The problem is we can't exploit them, because when my board uses a $15 silver price as its long-term average for silver, we don't get any return by recapitalizing the mine. And so we got ourselves into a catch-22. What do we do with this mine? We don't have high enough silver prices to invest, but if we don't invest, the mine's going to keep getting worse. So we found somebody who believes silver prices are going to be much higher than my board, which is Eric. And if you heard his presentation this morning, I didn't have a meeting, but I'm sure he told you he thinks silver's going to 50 or 100. So it was the perfect arb between two partners, somebody who wanted leverage to silver and somebody who had too much leverage to silver at low prices and needed somebody who believed in higher silver prices. So we've done a 60-40 joint venture with this property. You can see how big the property. Eric owns all of the assets and liabilities of the property. Very close to the Lucky Friday mine, which is Hecla's big mine. And so what we've done in the joint venture is Eric's committing up to $20 million in the first year to spend about $7.5 million rehabbing and redeveloping into new areas. Again, there's 80 million ounces of resource across the portfolio. 58 million of that is indicated and inferred, which we can't access because we don't have capital. So there's two plans, is to basically take the mine from 900,000 ounces to over 2 million to 2.5 million ounces by 2021, and then drill out more ounces in the view as we can target close to 150 million ounces total for the operation. So that recapitalization plan will take 18 months, but it takes the pressure off us. We're no longer going to be losing money at the asset. We've got 2 high free cash flow assets that will make money. Just where's that 500% increase in precious metal coming from? We talked about it. San Rafael, regaining the upper zone, Galena coming out of the recapitalization plan with increased production, and the Relief Canyon asset growing. And then when San Rafael runs out of ore, we've got the EC20 basically adjacent to it. So why invest? You get increasing gold exposure per share. You get low-cost operations around 100,000 ounce gold equivalent asset, gold equivalent ounces at $800. You got a large, safe North American resource base. You got leading precious metal growth at 500 to 600% over the next couple of years. Proven management team that's dropped the all sustaining cost of silver by 70%, and we believe it will be valued as Relief Canyon gets in.
Thank you very much, Terence.